It's time for Anything Cricket Test Match Watch. And we say a warm welcome to Ayana Holder, Wayne Holder, and our very special guest today, Rohan Chambers. And Rohan Chambers, a former Jamaica under 19 cricketer, son of Len Chambers, who would have played for the Jamaica senior team, and also once a member of a team called Wellies International. And here he is today on Anything Cricket. Let's talk. Not for the first time. Welcome, Rohan.
Thank you.
West Indies batting all day, 223 for the loss of 5. Rohan, what do you make of the opening day of this second test?
Well, it was a relatively slow day. We got off to a good start in the morning, scoring relatively quickly. Campbell and Brathwaite were looking to pounce on deliveries that were, loose and go over the top when necessary. After lunch, we lost a couple of wickets, so we had to, consolidate and get back on our feet. But at the end of the day, we have Bonner batting well, the Silver holding up his end, or the Silver rather. So, as long as these two guys can bat through at least the first session tomorrow morning, we should be able to put on a decent score, over 300, and then take it from there. But at the end of the day, it's not a bad position to be in. Could have been better, but I'll take it.
Win Holder, we can't have you come in last all the time. You're next.
Hello again, and nice to meet up with Rohan again in person. Right, so welcome to Anything Cricket, Rohan.
Thanks again.
Well, yes, and I do support you. It was a slow day. I think the most overused word over the past few hours since the match, the first day was completed, has been the word attritional. Wherever I have turned for a report on this match or a comment on this match, whether it be audio, video, or in text, that word attrition has come up quite often. But it was that kind of a day. But it was intriguing. It was really intriguing, and for us real cricket purists, I'm sure it was very enjoyable to watch. Both teams would claim that they are in a position that they are satisfied with, although I guess the West Indies might have preferred to have lost a wicket or two less. While on the other hand, Bangladesh would have thought that they could have probably picked up another wicket or two and to push themselves into the supremacy, the position of supremacy. But at this point in time, fairly evenly keeled game. The Bangladeshis would want to claim that they actually restricted the West Indies from capitalizing on the perceived advantage of winning the toss and batting first on a pitch which is supposed to not get any better as the days go on. And West Indies, on the other hand, would want to take some satisfaction in the fact that their first innings is still very much intact, and they've got two specialist batsmen at the crease with that opportunity still to get their total up to pass the 300 mark, and if I dare say probably up to about 350. So a fair shake among the teams, and I think it was a very even first day.
Ayana Holder, I'm sure you enjoyed the attritional atmosphere on day one.
Well, yes, I would give West Indies 2 out of 3 because we did fairly well in the first session. You had a little cluster of wickets in the second session, and just the lone wicket and a bit of stabilizing between Bonner and the Silver in the third session. If there's anything to take away, though, I think that the Bangladeshis, having lost Shakib Al Hassan, and I think that is very key for them, they've come back strong. They seem to be a team that have decided, we were just blown away in the first test, but we don't intend to just lay down and play dead. And I think that was very commendable by them. And tomorrow, I think the first session is going to be very interesting to see who might really pull ahead in this test.
Ayana, that first session that you made reference to, if there was a time when you had to maybe wonder if the defeat in the first test or the manner of that defeat had, really adversely affected Bangladesh, it would have been that first session. But it was really admirable how they came back out in the second period and really made a difference. Rohan, what do you think was really responsible for the ability of the Bangladesh side to come back out after lunch and look virtually a different side?
I mean, just a matter of just getting over that loss from the first test. I mean, they probably were in shock. But then, as you mentioned, they had some resilience. It doesn't matter of going back in, taking some time to think about what's happening, work on the batsmen, and it doesn't matter of things working well for them. Some of our batsmen didn't play proper shots. When I look at Mosley and Myers, their bat was way from their body, way across. So the bat wasn't close to the front foot. Bad shots. So Bangladesh was a little bit lucky in that regard. There weren't necessarily good balls that were bowled to those batsmen. But it's a matter of them not giving up. It's early days, and this game can end anyway, right? But still, you can't give up after one session. So it's just a matter of running for par for the course that they'll come back in the second session and put in some effort and see what happens. And they've got some wickets. So
when the Bangladesh side had another pace option, and it's interesting the whole idea of four spinners, sorry. But in many respects, you could say it was the pacers that really opened the door for them.
Well, they reduced that number to 3 with Shakib out of the team. There were just the 2 off spinners and Taijul.
Right, I meant the idea of 4 spinners.
Yes, no, I'm going to get there. But like I said, 2 bowlers stood out for Bangladesh on the first day today, and that would have been Taijul, who basically took over the leadership of the attack, took responsibility for bottling up one end and bowled some long spells, containing stuff, managed to get a couple of wickets along the way. And then there's this guy, what's his name? Ayub Javed, yes. This guy, right arm, medium fast bowler, not as fast as Mustafa Rahman. Actually, first of all, I mean, it was a surprise that the Fizz was left out of this team. I thought that he had done well enough in the first test to retain his play. And if anything, with Shakib out of the team, there's a possibility that they might have added another a seam bowler. But the management going with the change and bringing this guy who bowled well, especially after the luncheon break. You talk about what happened after the luncheon break. I thought that Ayub and Taijul, they combined well to apply some pressure to the West Indies. The right arm medium pacer troubled the batsman with his each way movement. And so I think that is what made the major difference. Along with that, the West Indies had a couple of starts. Like you said, the opening pair both got over 30, and we had 66 for that first wicket. But nobody really carried on. I think that is what made the difference to the West Indies not having that significant advantage at the end of the first day. It is the fact that none of the batsmen really pressed on, with the exception of Bonner, who is still there, and hopefully will be carrying on with the lower half of the batting lineup.
Human beings, human nature being what it is, I suspect there would have been a number of people watching cricket the first day just to see what Calderas would do. And I guess it showed what we as cricket people have known all along, that, every day is a new day. And it doesn't always work out. Ayana, I'm sure you were among those disappointed that Kyle didn't get him on the runs again.
Yeah, definitely. I think that he probably didn't assess enough this time around. And actually, I realized that the Bangladeshis have plugged Kyle Mears to some extent, because the area that the catch was taken was in between like a second, third slip area. And if you remember, he got a lot of boundaries to that area in the first test. So I would just give kudos to Bangladesh on that occasion for restricting Kalmir's, but I thought that he could have probably assessed a bit better and be a little calculated in the risk at that point in time.
Rohan, you are accustomed to big scores. Is it possible that Kyle may be maybe a little bit overconfident now, given his enormous success so far?
I mean, that's possible, but I mean, if you really look at his approach in that first match, he did give a chance early in the second innings. I think there was a catch down to long off that could easily be taken, and he wouldn't have made 210. So it's not like it was a totally unblemished innings, a perfect inning, so to speak. So he does have some weak areas, here and there. But that ball was just so wide for me. Even if you are not the most technically correct batsman, that ball was just so wide that I don't think he had to play at that ball. So maybe he just got a little bit complacent, as you said, overconfident. But hopefully, you can come back in the second innings and do something good. Campbell, for me, I don't like how he got out again this time. It's the same way he got out in the second innings of the first match. He's sweeping with his front foot not behind the ball, and the ball is going to hit his back leg or his mid-range. And if you allow the ball to travel so far, chances are the technology would more likely give you out because it's now a better predictor of the ball hitting the stumps. I know there was some debate about whether the ball hit the bat itself. There were some small spikes, but I think based on what I've seen, they look for a large spike, not those very small spikes, to be very conclusive to overturn the on-field decision. But I think the shot he played was a bad shot, sweeping from outside the off stump with his front foot not behind the ball. But hopefully, we can bounce back and in this innings as well, and then those batsmen can get better in the second innings.
Ray, what was your take on the LBW regarding John Campbell?
Well, again, it brought into question the idea or the notion of the benefit of the doubt going to the batsman. Because yes, there was some indecision, some indecisiveness about whether the ball actually hit the bat or not. But a spike is made to indicate that the ball hit something or something hit something, not necessarily the ball, because the bat hit the bat wall. So I understand the ruling that would have been employed, whereby the on-field umpire made a decision to give him out, whereby the third umpire is obliged to either find conclusive evidence that the batsman is in fact not out to change that decision. And I don't think that maybe the evidence was as conclusive conclusive enough for the third umpire, being fair to him. In cricketing terms, though, I am forced to say, like Michael Holding some time back, that what we used to regard as the benefit of the doubt going to the batsman is now given to the umpire. The third umpire actually gives the benefit of the doubt to his colleague on the field in situations like this. And that is, I guess, that is the reality of the technology as we have it today. But I thought that, but let me put it this way, I thought that Campbell was unlucky after all that.
Ayana, you are the only active umpire on this panel, as far as I'm aware. Do you think it's fair to say that the review system, which would have come into play, I suppose, after some people had called for it for a long time, do you think it's fair to say that it focuses a lot on protecting the umpire?
Well, I think that that's the reason it has been employed in the first place, probably. It's supposed to enhance the overall game and highlight any errors that players make. Is not to, so yes, I would say it's to protect them. It's not there to make them look bad. It's just that you can have some type of transparency in the game. And the decision was, I think, without technology, I don't think that there would be any debate on that one. Straight off, it looked pretty adjacent to me, but because we have the technology, then you get to see it more. You get to see it in slow motion from different angles. So it's one of those things. I think is probably something you could call a necessary evil. The umpire will not always get it right. The technology will not always get it right either. So it's just a 50-50 for me.
When I watch basketball, sometimes the commentators, there's a guy who was an expert referee, and occasionally they call on him to comment on tough decisions that are made on the court. And what it does, it gives insight into why the officials may have done a particular thing. It doesn't necessarily make you agree with them or disagree with them, but at least it gives insight. So it is like almost you're educating your viewing public. Guys, do you think there is room for this sort of thing maybe in our cricket coverage? Because I'm sure there are a number of people who are baffled by what happened in that decision, and some who believe probably that the umpires messed up.
I would jump in, Philip, because I think I have an issue with the review system. We might recall that in the first test, I can't remember if it was in the first innings or the second innings, but there was a decision that Bangladesh did not review. And when it was shown, you saw 3 reds. And I just asked myself, if the technology is there, why can't we just use it all the time? Some might say it's unfair, some might say it's fair, but I just feel like if it's there and the third umpire or the TV crew, someone is specifically set to control that particular area, then we might see some more entertaining test matches, because a lot of the chances that we see go down would probably be pointed out, and the contest becomes greater. So that's just my take on it.
But Ayana, before we come in, because what I want to say is so directly related to what Ayana's point. Ayana, you would know that recently they moved towards a system where now the umpires, the third umpire, the television umpire calls the no balls. That's something that would have been suggested not only by myself but by a number of people going back more years than I care to mention. So I think we've got to accept sometimes that cricket moves slowly. And who knows, maybe one of these days we get to the point that you were suggesting, Wayne.
No, I was going to ask her, Yana, if she's not advocating some kind of redundancy as far as she is concerned as an on-field umpire, particularly wherever when the technology is in use. Would there be any, because are you suggesting that when technology is employed, the technology takes over as the ruling force, and with a less of a part to play by the on-field umpires, Ayana?
No, I'm not saying that, because obviously giving out or not out, making decisions is not the only thing that an umpire does. And it's not every time that an umpire makes an incorrect decision. So I think it's just a matter of the third umpire acquiring a different role. So I don't think that it will make the on-field umpire role any less significant.
And when I don't know too many people. In fact, I can't recall anyone ever sharing with me that they go to cricket to watch the umpires. So with all due respect, Diana, who is an umpire, I am not coming to the game to watch you. So I am only concerned about if the decision is right or wrong. It doesn't matter to me who makes it. And if an umpire makes a call that is not accurate and the technology shows that it is not accurate, for example, the umpire makes a decision of not out, and the review shows that the ball is clipping the stump. So you stay with not out, so the umpire doesn't look bad. But I'm not aware that the LBW law says that the ball has to be crashing into the stump. The ball only has to hit the stump enough for the ball to come off. And except in very strange circumstances, as long as that ball touches itself, the bail does come off. So I think the unfortunately the review system focuses too much on defending and stopping the umpires from looking bad, then put simply. And really truly, that should not be the focus in my opinion.
Well, I have seen a lot of things in cricket. Sorry, Rohan. Just let me say this quickly. I've seen a lot of things in cricket. I've seen balls brush stumps and bails not come off. I've seen balls go between the stumps and bails not come off. So, not that I'm disputing the whole reasoning and purpose behind the technology, which is obviously to avoid the howler, what they call the holder, with the understanding that the human element will mean that errors will be made. Rohan, you go ahead.
Yeah, I do some umpiring here too, Philip, so don't leave me out. But I don't use some television.
I have to apologize, Rohan. That's what I said, as far as I know.
That's fine, but let's look at the technology. It's not 100% perfect, right? It's using a predictor. You're predicting where the ball would have hit. There's no guarantee a ball would have hit the top of the stump, the middle of the stump, all of that. It's a prediction. So there's like what you call an error, like you have a sampling error. There's an error of the technology not being perfect, a small percentage, right? So that's why the conclusiveness has to be, I respect that. You want to see more than 50% of the ball on this side of the pitch or hitting the bails or whatever it is. That kind of makes sense, right? I remember earlier last year, I was actually in South Africa watching the South Africa-England game. And I happened to be in the commentary box with Mark Nicholas and Michael Holder. And they were talking about the technology being a two-dimensional image to reflect a three-dimensional scenario, right? You don't know for sure if a ball really hits the bat that causes the spike. It could be the batsman's feet moving. We don't know for sure. So, I respect technology. It's much better than it was years ago. Good. It was designed to get rid of those blatant errors, but there's still going to be that room for that marginal decision that can go either way. And that's what it boils down to, and give the umpire the benefit of the doubt in that case.
As we said, the umpire gets the benefit of the doubt on this, so you two agree on that. But guys, let's look forward to day 2 now. What do the two sides have to do? Maybe Ayana may want to go first.
The two not-out batsmen will need to capitalize on the start that they have and push on to get a big partnership. Bonner has been batting really well. Glad to see him. I hope that he reaps the reward. Young De Silva also looking a bit stable. So I think that they need to bat long so that we could get that 300, 350 plus score, hopefully.
Wait.
I'm going to give it to the former West Indies, Jamaica regional youth player. I just barely made it at club level, so I'm going to give it.
So you're justifiably batting last this time, man.
But yes, I will have to. I'm forced to bat last.
Okay, fair enough.
Rohan, you go ahead.
No, repeat that question, Philip.
No, I was just saying, let's look forward to see what the respective teams have to do or would want to be attempting to do on day 2.
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned it earlier that Bonner and Silva just needs to bat out at least the first session, right? Get the jitters out of the way. If all things work well, Bonner should be at 100 by then. The Silva at a half century, and then they can build on that in the second session. Obviously, Bangladesh is going to want to restrict them, so it's going to be a very interesting first session, which will ultimately decide what good a score West Indies gets. It's still early days. As you recall, in the first test, Bangladesh made over 400 and lost, I think, right? So the game can go either way. Luckily, West Indies only needs a draw to win the series, which would be a real success for them. But the first session is going to be very, very interesting. And I think Bonner and De Silva have the right attitude to take us through to lunch and put us in a good position. Their mental strength and the ability to play the ball on its merit is an advantage, and I think they will do well. Putting my West Indies cap on.
Ron, though, before we go to Wayne, though, the temperature where you are looks totally different to where I am right now. What's really going on there?
Well, we get this sometimes here in Maryland, snow, it's
I mean, you've got the collar up and it's not the sober, it's kind of raised collar.
right. It's a bit chilly here. I think, what is it? It's about 30, what's it, 30 something degrees. So, sorry, 28 degrees actually. So, it's okay. I'm not complaining.
That is Fahrenheit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Philip, if ever a man deserved to make a test century, Nkrumah Bonner does. After his heroics in the first test, because don't mind you, his role was crucial in that famous victory. Eventually, he fell I think some 14 runs short of his 100. But I think that he has come back here after that test match, and he's repeated. And as a matter of fact, he's made it even better on this occasion because he's been a bit more proactive and he's had to lead the batting. He's had to be the glue that has held the West Indies batting together throughout that first day. And I believe he deserves to make 100. Obviously, he's got to come back out and start at not again. He's not going to start at 72. It will be 72 in the book. But for him, he has to start at 0 and build again, get his innings started. Hopefully, the silver will stick around with him for some period of time. And we look forward to a much improved contribution from the lower order, the tail, the longest tail that the West Indies now go into this match with. But we would hope that to compare with what they give us in the first test, the first innings of the first test, we would hope for a much improved contribution. So we're looking, West Indies, I guess the object ultimately would be to score over 300. The closer to 200 to 350 would be better. But of course, the Bangladeshis now will be saying that they are just 1 wicket away from that vulnerable lower order that the West Indies do possess. So they will be looking to make some early inroads. So it is, again, it starts with that intrigue. But from a West Indies perspective, I would like to see a decent first innings scores that puts us into some area of safety and give the bowlers something to work with.
You said vulnerable lower order. Some people may say you're being too kind. 223 for the loss of 5 at the end of day 1. We look forward to day 2, and we invite you to join us for a review of day 2 on Anything Cricket Test Match Watch. Thanks to Rohan Chambers, Ayana Holder, and Wayne Holder. Thanks to you for joining us, and we look forward to sharing with you on day 2.